Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the March 2024 Intro to Boom Learning webinar. My name is Kyle. I'll be your host today, and I'll be going over Boom Learning in almost its entirety, but mostly I'll be covering some of the new features that are in Boom cards that you can use in the studio, and I'll cover a little about how to make them and how to find them in the store and use them with your classrooms. I also want to just provide a basic overview of the platform to quickly get everyone up and going and getting things ready for your students to play and explore, and so that you can see reports about their activity as well and find opportunities to intervene or give them new things that they show you that they like more. So the home page here, I'm just using Chrome, the Chrome browser, to show Boom Learning. But you can use a Mac device as well with Safari, as long as the operating system's fully updated. And you can use Firefox or Brave, and Microsoft Edge works as well. You can also use Boom cards on a touch device with the Boom Learning app. If you want to know more about Boom cards and our membership upgrades, you can scroll down on the boomlearning.com homepage, as you can see up there in the address bar, to see a little more about what Boom cards are and how you can set up your teacher account. We also offer accounts for schools, so if your school is considering purchasing Boom Learning for a team of teachers, that's an option for them to reach out to us, and we can help set them up with a school account. For individual subscription types, we have Starter, Essential, Premium, and Publisher. If you're watching this after July 1st, however, the Essential option will not be available. Its features will be sort of bundled into Premium and Publisher. And we will also still offer the free subscription option after July 1st. And today I'll be talking mostly about what you can do with just a free account. With the Premium and Publisher are geared more towards getting more students signed in so that you can see more reports and so that you can build your own Boom card materials in the studio. To sign into an account or create one, you would click this little sign in tab at the upper right. And this is where you and your students would sign in from the same place. In your case, you would click I'm a teacher. But once you create some student accounts for them to use, they would click I'm a student. And if you don't have an account yet at all, you can click this little button here that says join for free. I'm going to sign into my demonstration account. And from here on out, it will be as if you've signed into your teaching account already. You've created a teacher account and you have a password and there's an email address linked to your account. From here, we will be looking at our dashboard as if we've signed in. And when you have signed into your teacher account, I'm going to cover everything it can do and how to set it up. As an overview, when you first sign in to a new teacher account, you'll see a dashboard. And the dashboard shows you what is primarily in your account and what your account is set up to manage. First up here, you'll see your classes, and a classroom is just a folder, so to speak, that you can organize student accounts into. So we can assign something to a group of students that I set up previously here, and we'll see I have some Bs, and there are 3 student accounts in there. Looking down here, we have a library, and this is where Boom cards are collected. Boom cards are like a slideshow, basically, a PowerPoint presentation or Keynote or Google Slides, very similar. It's just that they might play in a random order or maybe play in a very specific order depending on what the student decides to click on each card. And you can tell each card how you want it to behave so that it's interactive. You can hear sound from them and drag things around on the card. And you can draw on them now, which I'd love to cover in a moment. I'm very excited to share about that. Down here is the studio, and this is where boom cards that you create from scratch in your own account are stored. So the difference here is that the library is where boom cards are gotten from the store. This is other publishers have already created lots of boom cards, and they've listed them on the store, and sometimes they price them, sometimes they make them free. I'll show you how to get their free boom cards in this webinar today. But that's the difference. And the ones that are here that you get from the store, you can't really edit them very much. But if you create it from scratch, you can do pretty much anything you want with the deck. You can change every little picture and sound in it that you'd like. To get started, I want to use the classes tab up here and go away from the dashboard, because now we're going to zoom in on each of those and we're going to set them up pretty quickly. In the classes tab, you'll see a picture of your avatar. This is just sort of what your students can see you as. And your nickname is here at the top as well. And if you tap or click on a header, you can change them. Same with this picture up here. If you don't have a classroom yet, you'll see this new classroom button in the middle of the page, and the one I have is over on the left because I have already created a classroom here. If I click on a classroom, we will get a display of the classroom's information, which is kind of like looking at a folder where there's files in the folder. The main interesting bit here are the student accounts themselves, and those are these little bees down here that you see. And I can click and drag them to move them around and edit them with the little arrow. I can even change their username that they used to sign in and their passwords from here. I'm going to create a new classroom just like this to show you that it's actually very easy and quick to set up. If I click New Classroom, we'll see I now have a second one in this list, and I can actually toggle back and forth and select each classroom to see what the students are up to. This one, the new one, has a default name, so I'm going to click on the name at the top and make it real simple. We can ignore all of this up here for the most part. The classroom is set to be private and locked by default, so there can't be any mischief really with students seeing one another or creating their own accounts. We're going to create a new account for the students down here with this new student button. If I click this, it'll ask for a nickname and a temporary password. It has to have a number in it. So for now, the student will have to type this password. And if I click OK, it'll show you what the username is right here. The nickname is anything you want, but the username is secure, so it will be randomized. And to make it easier, we can type a new username for the student. We can add lots of students at once with the Add Many Students button, which I'll do that really quick just to show you what it's like. Now we have lots of bees suddenly popping up here in this classroom. We can even make sign in a little easier. So for bee number 4, for instance, to sign in, they will have to type B_4 on their device, because if I just do bee number 4, unfortunately, that name is already taken. So they have to type this username at the very least, but we don't want them to have to type webinar 1 as well. So if we click the Set Passwords button now, we can change the password for all the students to a picture password by checking this little checkbox right here on. Then, as long as the student highlights the same 3 images or more that I've highlighted as the teacher, from my view here, I'm the teacher making a password for the students. As long as they highlight these 3, that's how they can sign in now. This makes it a little more fun for them, and so they can start playing the boom cards more quickly. Now, I've mentioned playing boom cards and assignments, and now that we have lots of students set up, I'd like to go over to the library now. And the library is where, as I mentioned previously, that boom cards will be stored. And you can use the boom cards from the library to play them and assign them and see reports and do all sorts of things with them. But as you can see, very sad, I do not have any yet in my purchase folder. If I look here to the left, though, and you can organize your boom cards with folders as well, there are 2 default folders, one for boom cards from the store and some that you've made yourself. And here are some, this is what they look like when you have them in your library, or some boom cards that I've created from the studio from scratch. What we're going to do though is we're going to go to the store and we're going to shop around a little and look at some interesting boom cards in the preview play there. So we can get some that are already made and we can play them right now. In the store tab, there are lots of ways we can search for teaching materials, not just boom card decks that have cards in them and art on each card, and they have sound in them sometimes and things like that, but just images and fonts, things to print out. You can find all of this here in the store. The first tab is featuring specific artists and authors and publishers that make boom cards and have been making them for a while. And you can see here at the top, their store pages are featured. Oh, I forgot to mention points. We'll cover that in a minute, actually. But scrolling down, we will see some of the boom card decks that are featured. Sometimes it's seasonal. And we can see a price down here is what the publisher is charging for the listed item that they have. The points are kind of like pennies. So they turn dollars into points that you purchase, and then you can buy more boom cards, and then the publisher earns from their sales of what they make and sell, which you can do as well. If you were to purchase a publisher upgrade and make boom cards and sell them, you could do exactly the same thing they're doing. What we're going to do today is look for some free boom cards and some specific decks that I think might be really useful for some teachers. Here we'll see I switched to the decks tab, the gray tab underneath the blue ones, and we can look at boom cards that are ready-made. There are a couple that I think would be interesting to show specifically in the store. Here's one by Pinwheel Speech, and it is $2 or 200 points. But we can look at some other information about the listed deck from here as well, such as how many cards are in it, the grades that it covers, as well as its subjects. We can also see a preview play, and this is what playing the boom card deck will actually look like. When we have it in our library and the student signs in to play it, this little preview is kind of like a preview of what the deck will look like. And if we click this full-sized preview, we can see what the student would be shown on an iPad or on their laptop or something like that. This deck is played simply by proceeding through the deck using the buttons that the publisher created up here. There's a way to look at an overview of the cards as well. What I'd like to do is progress to the table of contents and show how this publisher is using our new draw feature. This little bird card is kind of fun. I drew it a little earlier, where we are guided by the teacher in the classroom to speak out loud and then go down a checklist by clicking these little chain images, which rotate between two images, a little square shape and a little green check. The publisher has taught this boom card to do all sorts of things. We can talk about what the bird looks like, and then we can draw it over here in the right by clicking on this new draw button that we've recently added to the boom card. When we click this draw button, we get some colors, and then we can choose a color and a size of the pen, and we can actually follow the instructions down below to create this little bird shape. I don't think I should spend too much time drawing the whole thing, but you can see how this new feature may help with all sorts of stuff like writing perhaps, or playing a connect the dot game, which are already popping up on the store. Oh, I'm almost done. I just have to make the beak here and some little rosy cheeks. There we go. I'll close draw and then click submit. And the card has been taught to say correct and make a little ding sound when the student has submitted some image on the right there. There's another example I did find of a boom card by the crafter teacher where there's some writing taking place. If we view a full size of this one, we can follow the instructions, whether they're given in the classroom or through an answer key, which are what the printables are for. We can draw here into this shape. Oh boy, that was a little messy. Let me click reset draw and choose a better color and maybe make the pen a little bolder. There we go. I did it. Now we can close the draw, and when we finish doing that letter, we can put the cherry on top of the ice cream, click submit, and it will accept those entries. And here's one where we have to put a couple spiders using a little drag and drop art piece, and then this drop zone, which was the same as the cherry, by the way. So this publisher is actually combining a couple of things that Boom cards can do into the same card using a draggable. And if it gets lost, it'll just sort of snap back here, which is nice. And the new ink feature that we added, where the student can practice drawing on the card if they're using a touchscreen with their finger, or a mouse if they have something like that too. Yeah, that's awesome. I like this Boom card deck quite a bit. It looks like it signed me out of my account for some reason, but that's pretty easy to sign back in. Boom is very secure, so if you leave your device for too long, we don't want anyone to be able to show up on your computer and see student data or something like this. I'm going to show you how to find free activities now. I think this is kind of useful. There is a drop down when you're looking at decks or images or even fonts that is titled Sort By. If I'm looking at decks, it's right here in the upper left, sort of above where the listed items are. And if you change this to price low to high, it will show you Boom cards that are priced at 0 points. So they're free. You can just add them to your library immediately. And this is a great way, I think, early on, especially if you're using a free account and you have new students and you haven't used Boom Learning before, to just get lots of good, fun stuff to play. Now, take note, if it is free, you might get a teaser or something like this, a trial, where there's maybe only the first 4 or 5 cards of a deck that they have priced in the store. So that's just something to keep in mind. But there are plenty of completely ready to play Boom card decks that are free that you can play. You can actually search the store more specifically with subjects here in this subject drop down, and there's a whole bunch of subjects. My goodness. You can even drop down a subject for more specific learning. There are grades as well, which if you highlight the grade, oh goodness, that's quite jarring. Here we go. If I highlight the grades, you'll see here I have grade K through 2 are highlighted, and I can turn them off as well. I can even type specific keywords into the field up here, and then as long as I sort by price low to high, I will see my keyword combine with the filter that moves the lowest price items to the top, which I think is pretty useful. I usually use this Boom card here to show how to get free Boom cards, and it's called Counting Frogs. It's a simple deck about counting how many frogs are on a log. And the preview play down here, we'll see there are some frog clip art images on some logs, and we have to decide from the numbers listed which is the correct number. We can play it from here and see that this deck is quite simple. It's just 10 cards in the deck, as we see here, and there's 1 card for each number from 1 to 10. I like this. So with a free deck, you don't have to add it to a shopping cart to check out and buy it with points. You can just click this Add to Library button here, and then click OK. And it will then update my library. I can go back to the store and keep shopping, or if we want, we can go back to the library tab at the top, and we'll see now in our purchase folder, yes, even though it's free, it still says it's purchased. We do have a Boom card deck now that we can play. If we click on this deck, we can see a preview play of it. But this play is really similar to what the deck looks like in the store. So this is for the teacher's sake to make some slight modifications to the deck, such as hiding cards in it or skipping around to see what the cards look like. There is an overview as well, which for some reason it's not showing the other images, but you can at least pan through the deck this way as well. To use this deck, now that we own it, or well, we don't own the rights to publish it, but we own the rights to teach from it, we can use this action drop down here to do a lot more with this deck. Now, this drop down is quite extensive, but I'll try to cover everything here pretty quickly because it's actually simple, even though it's very daunting. To assign this deck, we would just click this assign button at the very top. And let me do that again so it's not so jarring. To get a list of our classrooms here, and what this will do by clicking this little checkbox on now with the frogs on a log counting game, this will allow the students to see this deck and play it when they sign into their accounts. It's kind of like taking the game off the shelf and putting it on the desk and putting all the little pieces up for them. I'm going to return to this action dropdown in a moment, but I'd like to show you what the student sees now, because that's all you really have to do. We set up the students for them for the bees earlier in the classes. And if I go over there, we can double check. Yep, there they are. The bees are still there. And that's about it. That's all they need. So to test the student, we can go up here to this settings button and just sign out of our teaching account. Now we're going to sign back in again, but this time we'll click I'm a student, click sign in with Boom, because I just created the students from scratch. We didn't do any importing, although that is possible to import them. We're just going to click the top one. And then if I recall, we made the username B_4, and we set a picture password for the students as well, which was a bee, of course, and a dog and a cat. And as long as we highlight these three and then click sign in like the teacher instructed, we will be able to sign in to our Boom Learning student account that we made for the student. The student has a lot of similarities to the teaching account, but not much. There's not much in the account. There's some points that they earn from playing Boom cards. The most important bit is down here where we will see the frog counting game, and they can click on it from here and play the game. Now we'll notice something a little different. The student is signed in and playing the game, and now the deck is actually randomizing the cards, because remember how the first card was always 4 frogs and they were on, but now we're seeing the 1 frog card first. We can play it, and it will play sound now as well, and it will also report on every time the student clicks on a correct or incorrect answer and give them a report card. I'm going to get one wrong.
Whoops.
And then now this card has tracked that the student got one of them wrong, because during this session, unfortunately, my first guess here was incorrect. I can get it correct and move along, but the report will show that the initial guess was incorrect, and you can go find out more about that. For now, though, the student's going to take a brain break. They're going to click save and quit, and we'll go back. And we've played as the students played the game, and they get some immediate feedback. They hear the little whoops and the ding, and they also see some points accruing from when they answer the cards and they progress through a deck. They will get points. To see more about this, you can view it from the teaching account. So we're actually going to go back now to the teaching account. And we're going to touch on what the reports were in a moment. But I'd like to quickly cover the rest of these actions that you can use the Boom cards with. Let's say you do not need reports and you just want to play the new game that you got from the store and test it out. Well, you can create a fast pin, and this fast pin is just a hyperlink, really. It's just a web address that you can paste into an address bar, like the Chrome address bar I just did up here in the corner. And then you'll start to play the Boom Cards game immediately. You don't have to sign in, and it will properly shuffle the deck and show the sound. Well, you'll hear the sound when you progress through the deck. It also will not show that hide card function that is primarily for the preview play that the teacher wants to do to see the deck and edit it a little. Live sessions are very fun. This is also new. A live session is very similar to a fast pin. So a fast pin will just have the student play the game on their own device. But Boom Live, if you start a Boom Live, it's fairly similar to a fast pin, but then other players can join and you can see one another on the same screen. You can see one another's cursors moving around and when they tap or type on the screen. If I scroll down, we'll see this start session button. And then the Counting Frogs game will begin and you'll get a link. And you can send this link to anyone you'd like to play with you in this session. They won't not have to sign in, but if they are signed in, it will show you who they are during the session. You can see too it's shuffling and it's not providing a way to hide the cards. Up here in the upper right, you'll see where everyone's joining, and unfortunately it's just me at the moment. You can print the Boom cards if you want to use them in the classroom in another way, or hide certain cards, and that's, again, more important once you see the reports. Custom play settings will let you change the way the deck is played in small ways. For instance, if the student clicks the Give Up button, you can show them what the correct answer was. It'll mark the card as incorrect, but the student can then at least see, oh, it was there on the card, and then proceed to the next card. This is usually left off by default. You can also allow the student to play the deck over and over again, which would then create multiple reports that you can compare to one another. This can sometimes be a little confusing because a deck might not always show every card in it per session. So you can take the default number of cards per play in this field and make it say however many cards are in the deck total. Or let's say you're doing a formative assessment, you can turn this off so that the student only gets to play it once, and it will then make the deck play every card, because sometimes publishers have hidden some cards so that the students must play it repeatedly in order to see them all. So it's a little tricky, but you can make the Boom card play all of them. And of course, if you turn off randomizing, then the Boom card deck would not shuffle it up, even if you make a fast pin or assign it. I'm going to start talking about the reports now and how to read them and how Boom Learning thinks about how to keep reports. And it's a bit overwhelming at first, but hopefully you will find some use here. I'm going to start by the report view of the deck itself, because it tends to get missed, is that you can actually take a deck from your library and say, how is it doing? Do the students like it? Are they having any frustrations with the deck? From the action button of this Boom card deck, we can click the View Report button. And from here, we can see all the times a student has played this deck while signed in. So here I have created some artificial data where I created B number 1, 2, and 3 from before, and that was the classroom that was already there. And they've already been playing some games that I assigned to them. All I really did was sign in as B number 1. Now it appears here back in September. And I played the Counting Frogs game here for 47 seconds. I got 5 correct and 5 incorrect. Then, while signed in as B number 1, I played it again. I played it for 31 seconds. Same score. And then a third attempt here. Looks like I spent a little more quality time. And then I got a few more correct and only 2 incorrect. B number 2 also created some session logs where they signed in and played the Counting Frogs game. And B number 4 which this is today's date, the date of this recording, and I just created this student and signed in and played a little bit, and I think we got the 6 frog on a log card wrong, and that's when I took a brain break, and it actually recorded that session. We were playing for 34 seconds, and then we didn't complete every card, so it says it's active. I did not do all 10. I got 4 correct and 1 incorrect. This might be very useful to find out if this deck is helping. There is a little tab up here too to report by the cards themselves. And this is a histogram of the card that has been answered incorrectly the most at the top, and the card that has been answered correctly the most at the bottom, and then everything in between. So the best way to visualize this is that the students have been playing the game over and over. Some have played Counting Frogs repeatedly. It's just tallying up here every time this card has been seen by a student. In this case, the 1 frog on a log has been seen 7 times and has been answered correctly every single time it's been seen. Whereas at the top, we have some very frustrating cards where the 6 frogs has actually been seen 7 times, and it's only been answered correctly twice and answered incorrectly 5 times. And then this card that has 7 frogs has been seen 5 times, and it's been answered incorrectly every time it's been seen. So this might be a way to use the hide cards feature. Let's say this 1 frog down here. We want the students to continue playing the frogs counting game, but we don't want them to see the 1 frog anymore. We can go to the library actions and click hide frogs. Hide frogs, hide cards. And then we can do an overview of the deck like this in the preview play and skip around and see where is it. There it is. There's the 1 frog, and we can hide it. And now when the students play it again in the future, they will mostly be seeing the cards that maybe they're struggling with. And so you'll have more opportunity to intervene. There are more reports than this. If you want to see reports more about the student, specific students, rather than the deck and overview of the deck, you can use this blue reports tab at the top. And then from here, I just like to look at all time with the time frame drop down, and then we select which classrooms we want to review. In this case, we'll just look at the Bs from before who have been playing boom cards for a while. Once you select a classroom from here, it will give you the boom card decks that are in your library to compare to that classroom group. So I know these students have been playing the frogs game, so I'm going to highlight the Counting Frogs game. You can actually highlight multiple boom card activities at once, and then you'll see as I scroll down, oh my goodness, quite an overload of information here. So for now, what I want to do is just compare those original Bs, those students, to the frogs counting game, and then I'll collapse that. So all we're really looking at are the students and the points of data related to how they've approached the Counting Frogs game. Up here, we'll see a way to search the students or sort them by their name. And we can export a report card as a spreadsheet or print a PDF based on what these little data points are checked on or off. And right now, the play is checked on first, last, average, and best. You can turn time on as well, which will show you the total number of minutes and seconds that the student has played this game. Or gems as well, which shows you if there are some cards left in the deck that the student has not gotten correct yet. So with all of these checked on, the important ones for the most part, I can talk about each column here and what they represent. We obviously have our Bs. So here's B number 1's row. Here's B number 2 down below them, and B number 3. It will even show you when they last signed in to play. In the plays column, it shows you how many times did they play this deck. It's pretty straightforward. B number 1 is playing it quite a lot. They've played it 3 whole times. Whereas B number 2 has only played it twice, and B number 3 has played it 0.6 times. So they're kind of getting through one play session, their first one, but they haven't finished one yet. In fact, because the deck has 10 cards in it, 0.6 means they did 6 of the cards in the deck. The average is counting up the total number of cards they played. So with B number 1, since they played it 3 times and the deck has 30 cards, they've actually seen 30 Counting Frogs cards total. And of those times they've seen the cards, they got 18 correct. I don't like the idea of the average too much, because for the student's view, the only way for them to correct the average is to have already mastered the deck and then to play it over and over, getting it correct every time, all of the cards correct each time, to sort of skew the average up. So if you wanted to export or print a report card for the student, you can turn average off, which you don't have to, but I just like to use this as an example of how you can manipulate what the report card looks like when you go to print it. The best score here just shows the session where they got the most correct answers. So 8 out of 10 is a pretty good score, and B number 2 got 9 out of 10 on their best session. The first session shows you the first time they played the deck, and the last is the most recent. So these two can be useful as well. In fact, some schools only want the first time for assessments, because they don't want the student to just play it over and over until they get the best score they can. The assessment is to find out what that initial understanding is. And the gems, of course, are showing that there are a couple cards, 2 of cards, in fact, in this deck that B number 1 has always gotten incorrect. Even though they've played repeatedly, there's still a couple they keep getting incorrect. To find out more about B number 1, or any of the Bs really, you can click on their green play circle. So if play is turned off, there's not really a good way or a quick way to go there. So just make sure that you see the little green play, and then when you click it for any of the Bs, and in this case we're looking at B number 1, we can see a little more detail about how they're approaching the Counting Frogs game. Here at a glance, we'll see each of their play sessions. So the date that they played and the time, and then each of them go into the most recent here on the left. A similar concept here for the accuracy map shows the deck play session, the oldest, the one that's furthest in the past at the bottom, and then the second time they played, and then the most recent at the top. And each cell is one of the cards in the deck. So clicking on a cell will show you, oh, here's a card, they answered 4, and they moved on. The second time they played, they answered the 4 card with a 3, then they got 4 and moved on, so that's somewhat curious to see. A couple of the columns are concerning, though. This is where the missing gems would be. Is here we see a column where that's always been answered incorrectly, and if I click on one of them, we'll see the first time they played, they guessed 5 and then got 6. The second time they played, they guessed 7, then they chose 6. And the third time they played, they chose 7 again. The other column is the 7 Frogs card, where there's a similar issue, where they're guessing the wrong number first, and then they get the right one and move on. Below this, we have a response time graph, where the low dot is indicating that the student did not look at the card for very long before they tap on something or click on it. So clicking on the dot will show you sort of a different angle to the deck for B number 1, where they're actually finding a couple of the cards in the deck very easy and struggling with the others. Here's the 2 frogs. They answer it correctly. They've answered it correctly every single time they've seen it, and they're not looking at it for very long before they answer. Same with this little dot here is the one frog. So there's a similar trend there for cards that they are already mastering. I'd like to talk now a little about the studio. The studio is where boom cards are created. So let's say you have an idea of a puzzle or a quiz or a test or an assessment or something that you think your students would like. You can make the boom cards using this platform. That's where all of the boom cards come from. Or they come from this studio page. And you'll notice here the studio's a little bit like classes where I have an avatar, but this one's different. This circle represents the logo of your brand. So if you go to the store and we look at featured authors, we'll see here this little circle logo, or here, this one too. In your studio, whatever you place in the circle is what that logo will look like to everyone else when you go to list your work. You can set up a bio for your account and look at some details about it. And you can change the settings of your account as well to set your grades. And this will help with being discovered both on Google searches and through the store's search bar. If we scroll down here, we'll see information about your account's subscription, which can say starter. If it's free, you can still use a lot of these features here. Although you will not have selling tools unless you upgrade your account to publisher, because the publisher subscription is how you become discoverable and list those items that you make. To get started making things, you would just use this asset manager. And the decks themselves are kind of like project files that are stored here, and they are the items that have multiple cards in them with instructions on what things on each card are correct or incorrect or draggable, or whether you can draw on them or use voice memos, which I'll mention before we close today. Images is where, if I click this, you'll begin to see how it's kind of like a scrapbook. You'll add images to your account with this upload images button. Always ensure you're licensed to use the image if you want to sell from the work that the image is in. You can also create some folders to organize your images and see images that you've gotten from the store. You can use the price low to high sort filter within the store to find clip art that's free as well. Not just boom cards that are ready made. So for instance, here are some clip art pieces that I got from the store that were free that you can use to assemble boom cards with. Sound is available only to premium subscription upgrades or publisher. So sound is how you could record a sound of your voice and then place it as an MP3 file into your account. Very similar to how you would upload a PNG or an image, any kind of image. Bundles are useful if you want to put lots of boom card decks or images into the same purchase for buyers. And printables are really good for classroom activities that are just static. They're meant to be printed out. Game boards or even answer keys are pretty popular as for printables. I'm going to click this decks tab here and we'll do a little brief tour through the studio so that you can get started. Although, unfortunately, I will not be able to cover all of the details of the studio today. I'd like to just get you started. In the studio here, even with a free starter subscription, you can click this new deck button and it will create a tutorial. And then just click it again or leave the tutorial with the back button and then click new deck. And it will create an empty blank deck for you to create boom cards with. I have lots of boom card decks that I'm working on here, as you can see. I'm just going to click this one to edit it. And here we'll see that it's a very big, complicated editor, very similar to making any slideshow, digital slideshow. In fact, you can see here along the left, are each of the cards in the deck, which if I click on them, we'll see our canvas where there's some elements on the card like this text and some shapes. Or here on this first card, there's some artwork, and there's even a little sound widget on the card. This is all built by putting widgets on the card and then choosing which images you want them to be, or if you want them to be a container that has a multiple choice option inside of it. You can make boom cards in very many ways. In fact, here's an example of drag and drop, which is very popular with students and teachers and publishers because it makes something fun and tactile for the student to move around on the card. While we're looking at it in the editor, you'll see there's lots of little icons and highlights and sort of demarcations of function that the publisher of this deck has taught these little items to do. I'm going to make a boom card for you really quickly to show you what it's like to build one. And then I'll show you how to duplicate it. And then you can kind of create lots of boom cards quickly once you know what all of the little widgets do. Here's one where there's simple instructions on the card with text. And there's actually a sound widget on here too, which if you click or tap it, it will play a sound. And some artwork, clip art pieces. I'm going to create a new card. Just click this little plus button. And this new card will be blank, as you can see. I need some instructions, so I'm going to take the little text and put it on the card just like that. The instructions are basically the same as the other card. You can double-click any element on a card to change it. Just like the text, I'm going to take a sound now and drag it and drop it right onto the card. And the sound file I'm looking for that I uploaded earlier with this upload sound button is the touch the blue shape. Now I need some images, so I'll take this image widget and put it on the card using this red circle. We need a couple more though, so I'll drag a couple more on here. And now we have something very similar to that other card, just by dragging some widgets here onto the card and changing their shapes and making it look nice. We can use the little handles here around any element to adjust it. It's not quite done yet, because over here on the right are properties for the card where we can actually teach it to be interactive. So this might be the kind of the scariest part of the editor, really, is it's easy to put things on the card, but teaching it what to do, well, all we really need to do here is make this one wrong, because this is not the blue shape. And this one too is also going to be set to be wrong. And then here is the correct one. So we're going to set that to be correct. And now we'll notice that little outline that we saw on the other card where these images have been taught to be wrong or correct. So this card is ready to play. It's actually built. And all we need to do to test it out is click this little preview button right up here in the middle. So if you ever want to see, hey, I'm building a boom card, does it work? Just click this preview button, and then it will play as if you were the student and it was on the player, and we can actually click.
Touch the blue shape.
Oh, that's terrible to hear your own voice. My goodness. But there it is. There is some instruction of the teacher in the card. And if I click where I said it was wrong, it's going to say whoops, and it's going to record that report as well if the student has signed in to play this deck. And now it's going to progress properly, and we'll see. Oh, there's another card where there's a correct answer. Okay, I can't get carried away too much. There are some new features with a boom card that might make it fun for your students if you're creating. And I mentioned it a little earlier where you could draw on the card, and that is set up by the publisher very simply. All you have to do is while they're or you are editing the boom card is look to the properties over here on the right, and you will see where the allow voice and allow ink checkboxes are found. By turning one of these on, let's start with the voice memos. Actually, I want to show the voice memos. So we're going to turn allow voice on, and then when we preview this, there's going to be a new button that pops up. And any publisher that has turned that little checkbox on a boom card in the deck that you purchase or create yourself will then have that record button. Clicking record will give a little modal, and then you can click start and it will record through the device's input microphone. It won't save the recording, unfortunately, for the reports view because it's not quite secure enough for this yet. We don't want to hold student data like this in an insecure way. So in order to really use the voice memo, you'll have to stay on the card where they record the voice and use the button this way. Allowing ink, and of course you can use both of these. So I'm going to just leave the voice on and allow ink. If the publisher has done both of these and we preview it, then we'll see a draw button as well as a record button. And if you recall, when we were looking through the store earlier, we were playing with the draw feature quite a bit. And here I don't have a very good example of something to draw on, obviously, but now we have the ability to make some marks and draw little shapes on the card together with the student. So enabling ink is quite quick and easy. If you're making the boom card, you would just have it turned on the card, and then you could place whatever kinds of artwork you would like. There are lots of other things about boom cards that are very new, so they haven't been seen very much. For instance, chain images allow an image to be set so that it cycles through lots of clip art. So let's say the student wants to click on either of these images, it will rotate through some pictures of other shapes. And this is how a lot of the memory match games are created. The memory match games are just using a container like this. As you can see, there's this border, and then there's some images on the inside of the container. The container is designed to shuffle where the selection is of the correct and incorrect answers. It's not going to change what they are. It'll just change what position they're in within this bounding box. So if I preview this, we can click and try to find two images that match. But if we preview it again, it will change where they are. See, now the bees are in the different spot. Well, that's because this container is sort of shuffling up where they go. Each chain image has a picture of the little logo here, and then on the reverse side, or the only other image in the chain, is one of the two images. To make one of these, it's really easy. You can just drag any of the multi-picked container or a multi-choice container onto a boom card, and then it'll give you a little template where you can go through and double click on each cell to change what you want to be in that cell as an image, kind of like this, or double click on the button and change what you want the word to say inside the cell. These little containers are designed to be randomized as well. There is a lot more to this, and I don't want to run over time and share a bit about how you can use them once you've actually created a boom card activity that you think your students would find fun. Up here in the details button, when you're editing the boom card, you can set all of the stuff that you want to help you be more discoverable in the store, such as descriptions, what the price point is for the item, and acknowledgments if you use an artist's work. The search here will also help you be discovered. Subject as well. The play tab is useful for teaching the deck how to function. So sequential will just play card 1, then card 2, then card 3. But randomize will make it play like the Counting Frogs game, where it shuffles it all up. And Flow Magic is unfortunately for another time, but it is how you would make table of contents or boom card decks that go in different branching pathways. And maybe the student should play it more than once to find everything. Down here are some buttons to publish the boom card deck. I have more buttons than you may see at first, but you should always be able to privately publish the boom card deck. And by clicking this private publish button, the boom card deck would then become available in your library tab in the self-published folder. So that's how I get my boom cards that I made myself into the classroom where the students can see the boom cards, is by using the studio and by editing the boom cards from here. While you're editing all of the decks, not just a particular deck, but looking at a list of everything, you can use the little action button here to create working duplicates of the deck. So say you want one to have certain kinds of questions and another to have another, but the template is basically the same. You can just clone it and then make changes to the other deck without affecting the original. You can also share it to another teacher's account by having their email address and making them a colleague. You can private publish it, or you can give ownership of the deck to make changes to it to someone else. So if you transfer the deck, you would see it disappear. You would no longer have access to it. Okay, so I'm about finished with the basics of Boom cards and Boom learning. I'd like to cover one more small little thing before I let you all go, and that is the settings button here in the upper right corner. By clicking the settings button and going down here, all the way down to the help center, you can contact us at our support center and get some help if something seems wrong or something's not working the way you expect. All you have to do is go to the help center and then scroll down here, and there is a pre-filled email with your account information here. And then you can type a subject that's related to whatever it is you'd like to talk with us about. This is really good for asking for features and functionality as well. So if you want something more, if you think it would be useful to have a new feature, this is a great place to do that. And there's also articles from the knowledge space here. So let's say you would like to recover a password, or maybe drag and drop. You're making boom cards and you're wondering how to connect drag and drop. Well, there's lots of guides in our help center about pretty much everything involving boom cards and how to use the features of your account. This recording, this webinar recording will be available both on our YouTube page and on our Vimeo page. You might not receive a Zoom follow-up email since there weren't many registrations, but if you are here attending, please feel free to go there later and look for it if you'd like to review anything I covered today. Thank you very much. We're about at the hour, so I'd like to let you go, and thank you for attending today. And I hope everyone enjoyed this and will be able to benefit from these features that we've made for you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.